take a big leap.
I think both teams looked at their situations last year as circuses. The Jets with all the Rodgers stuff and the way it ended with Saleh, and then Hackett losing play calling. It was a 0 out of 10, the Jets season last year. The Patriots was even worse.
Yes.
And you could blame Gerard Mayo, you could blame the people who hired him, but it just didn't feel like everything was ready for what they were. They have made massive, massive changes and upgrades. You were involved in that process for the Jets. Was that intentional to say, hey, we are now starting and it's going to be culture and discipline, and this is going to be a different show than it was the last few years?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a job description of a head coach is to establish culture, scale leadership, hire people, hold them accountable. And Harry, you made an interesting point about the Mike Vrabel, Bill B lineage. I'll go back to Aaron Glenn being coached by Coach Parcells, and there was a lot of success there as well. And look, I've known Aaron Glenn for 30 years. Like, he's the same guy. He is tough. He's smart. He is going to hold people accountable, and I think that's job number one as being a successful head coach. How you do it stylistically, they come in all shapes and sizes, but at the end of the day, you got to hold players accountable.
I want to bring up one last point as far as Aaron Glenn and the Jets. Remember, Aaron Glenn was there when the Jets were 1-15. He's been a part of this organization when it was downtrodden, and when they flipped it and turned it around. And so he can relate to the players. And it's like, look, I've been there with you guys, and I've also turned it around, and so that's why I'm bullish on both New England and the Jets situation.
A team that's been in the news a lot and was in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago is Cincinnati Bengals, and the stalemate in Cincinnati continues as defensive star Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals front office have yet to agree on a deal for their 9-year veteran. Hendrickson has been a no-show for training camp, and he posted a picture of himself in Florida, in God's country, earlier this week. Bengals star receiver Jamar Chase, who became the highest paid receiver in the league a few months ago, spoke on the situation yesterday.
I don't really know much about what Trey got going on in his situation because I'm not in his situation anymore, but I'm sure everyone wants to be treated the same. And that's the hard part with stuff like this. And at the end of the day, it's not really him making a decision. So, I just wish the best for him and hope he pull it off.
We've got hold-ins throughout the league. We've got disgruntled players throughout the league. Trey Henderson's not there. And we have seen this situation play out and guys get their deal done. But I look at this Bengals team and all the hope and all the expectation. Harry Douglas, could this situation potentially derail the season even before we even get to actual preseason football, the way that this thing's going down?
Yeah, because when you look at Cincinnati and the inability to play defense in a way to get your team to the playoffs last year, and the only bright spot that you had on your team was Trey Hendrickson, who led the league in sacks. Oddly enough, he had 17.5 2 years in a row. 17.5 plus 17.5, that's 35. That's pretty good from a pass rushing standpoint. But when you also look at Mike Brown's comments, and here's what bothered me.
Yep.
When you say, from a negotiating standpoint, that you're dealing with Trey Hendrickson and not working with Trey Hendrickson and negotiating with Trey Hendrickson. See, we're all in relationships, right? Do you want your significant other saying that they're dealing with you? Like that sounds pretty awful to me. And then he talked about, giving him a raise and kind of, should we have gave him a raise? We gave it to him. He deserved it. Tried to walk it back. When you hear these type of things, I'm saying to myself, man, Trey Hendrickson better get the hell up out of Cincinnati.
Okay, so should he demand a trade?
Yes, but they already tried to go down this road, right? And it was a dead end. So I think the only thing for Trey Hendrickson to do right now is just stay away and say, hey, let me see if y'all can do it without me.
I'm picturing Darrelle Revis at the Roscoe Diner with you in Hard Knocks back in 2011 or whenever that was. You've been down these contract negotiations before. You were the premier GM in this city. When you look at this one, what would be your guidance to Duke Tobin and those guys in Cincinnati?
Be a great listener. Get your yellow pad out. Be a great question asker. There's always a landing spot. And there were a lot of ominous days when we were trying to get Darrell's extension done. And look, from a front office perspective, you have a boss, you have an owner, you have a head coach, and you're a steward of that organization. But Trey Hendrickson obviously has outplayed his contract. You want to keep him. And there's always a solution, Peter. And again, sometimes it's a little bit more obvious than others. Maybe you agree not to franchise him. We saw the Giants a little bit under the radar within the last 48 hours give $3 million in incentives to Dexter Lawrence. There's ways to do things where you can put Band-Aids on it. It may not be ideal Both sides may cringe a little bit, but there is a landing spot. And to me, we talked earlier, Peter, like I see Atlanta and Cincinnati kind of like similar versions, great offenses, questionable defenses. If I'm Cincinnati, who, in fairness, had a great offseason, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase.
They were doing parades in March.
Peter, they got to get this done. Like somehow, some way, figure out a solution.
Your thoughts?
I just think that you've lost, I said it yesterday, the Bengals are back bangling again.
Yeah.
You had so much momentum moving forward in the offseason, obviously signing Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and then here you are, your star pass rush. By the way, you've known as an organization for 2 years now that this man has wanted a new deal, okay? And now it's gotten to the point he hasn't reported. And oh, by the way, your number one pick isn't even in camp. You got a new defensive coordinator. I mean, it's just, and on top of all of that, you're notorious for starting slow. 1-11 in September. Like over the past few years.
And there's a reputation around the league that you're one of those organizations that doesn't take players and doesn't take care of them.
Doesn't take care of your players.
Whether that's fair or not. And I know Bengals fans get very vocal about that. That's an old narrative.
I learned that the hard way.
I'm sure they jump on you because the last few years it has changed. But this one is peculiar.
It is very peculiar. And again, we saw an all-time season from Joe Burrow last year. Just wasted away.
That nobody's going to talk about moving forward because they didn't even make the playoffs.
No. It's a good point because I think you look at the way this roster is constructed, and let's get to this. ESPN recently came out with an article that ranked the best rosters in the NFL this season. The Ravens came out on top, number 1, and they were followed by the Eagles and the Lions, which is expected. But the Bengals do have a spot in this top 10 list. They're ranked number 9. Are you guys buying that the Bengals have a top 10 roster around Joe Burrow?
Hell no.
No?
I say they do. Pass the score, right? Run to win and rush the pass for Bill Walsh, right?
Yep.
If Shamar Stewart and Trey Hendrickson are there, that's what they could do. They could score points.
If those guys are there, you say yes.
Yeah, on paper, which is what I think presumptively this article is saying.
You have a great face right now, and it's one of dismay, disgust, and just
That's
shock.
what it's like to negotiate with you.
I could imagine.
I am a very tough negotiator, by the way.
Top 10, are you just neglecting the defensive side of the ball?
Could we put the top 10 back up there, please?
Let's see it. You want teams you want to rattle off that are better?
Well, I mean, how about the Minnesota Vikings?
Yeah.
They're not even in the top. Are you kidding me?
That's a great point.
As much as we've talked about, J.J. McCarthy have arguably the best infrastructure in the National Football League, you don't have the Minnesota Vikings in there? Like, that is just insane.
Where are the Green Bay Packers?
Where are the Green Bay Packers at? Okay? Like, those two teams right off the top, to me, top to bottom, better than the Cincinnati Bengals.
It shows you the juice that Joe Burrow has.
Well, that's a great point.
Well, I mean, if you're waiting the quarterback, then obviously it's going to be slanted towards, the Cincinnati Bengals. But we're talking about roster construction. There's no way in my mind that you can put Cincinnati above Minnesota or Green Bay.
In a way, that's a ranking of front offices, and it's a ranking of GMs. And as we're dragging them for the Shamar Stewart and we're dragging them for the Trey Hendrickson, in the same breath, we've got them as a top 10 roster. Obviously, they're doing something right.
Well, I would say this also about Cincinnati. One of the things that I feel like has hurt them over the last 2 seasons, they have young players on defense, and those young players haven't developed. Like
they draft them.
Like we've seen the young players for the Philadelphia Eagles. So when you look at that, right, and you say to yourself, man, Al Golden has his work cut out. Because at some point, along with Zach Taylor, you have to allow these players to grow. They have to grow in order for your defense to be better. It's not like they're bad players. It's just we understand that the NFL game is different from the collegiate game, and there's this growth process. We've seen that growth process for the Philadelphia Eagles, and what were the results? A Super Bowl win, when your young players catch on and they thrive early on.
Well, all I would say is this. When all your money is tied in on offense, like the Philadelphia Eagles, you damn well better draft and develop greatly on the defensive side of football.
Rams had that success, and they're still in the playoffs every single season. We're just getting started here. Bill Belichick and Mike Vrabel both have new challenges this season. We're going to go down to Chapel Hill, but we're going to get back up to Foxborough.
Các bạn đã đến với kênh YouTube của mình. Video ngày hôm nay mình lại đi tô màu và mình sẽ tô những bức tranh, những sản phẩm thật là đẹp để gửi tặng đến các bạn. Và mình mong rằng các bạn hãy ấn like và đăng ký kênh để ủng hộ mình nhé. Và bây giờ mình cần chuẩn bị những dụng cụ, đó là những sản phẩm in sẵn. Đây là bút sáp màu. Và bây giờ mời các bạn cùng theo dõi quá trình mình tô màu. Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video này của mình.
Bây giờ mình sẽ cắt dán nha.